Happy Sunday, everybody. Today is July 26th, 2026. So 2626. Anyway, I am your host, Friday Jones, and this is another episode, the 24th episode of the Black Civics Collective, being sponsored, of course, by the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants. And today, you guys don't know, I'm so excited. I always love when I'm talking to like my people. And today's guest is definitely my people, Dr. Deborah Jenkins. And for those of you who don't know, she's the vice chair of LA's Reparations Commission. But I'm excited to talk to her because if you have been following me individually, I really have been tracking the Department of Justice and Hermit Dillon and her attack on reparations. And so she attacked Asheville, North Carolina. She sent them a letter. They basically, based on a letter, not a lawsuit, they stopped all of their reparations activity. Asheville, I'll keep saying this, is my favorite model for reparations. And now the Department of Justice has attached itself to Evanston. And so in light of the 2-year hold that we had going on with New York, like I'm super, super excited. So I'm not going to hold you guys outside of hot topics or things that are going on. Hermit Dillon and her attack on reparations is what's going on. So I'm not going to belabor the point. However, I wanted to make sure I did my sister her just due. So the Reverend Dr. Deborah Jenkins, professional, she is an ultimate professional. She is an educator, public theologian. She knows some things. Ooh, we're going to get spiritual today. She is the founder of the Presley Family Institute, a special education teacher in the Bronx, New York. She is the architect of prophetic education, a framework integrating literacy, culture, faith, and community to promote Black educational flourishing. Dr. Jenkins serves as the vice chair of the New York State Community Commission on Reparations Remedies and is the author of the forthcoming book, Prophetic Education, Black Faith, Freedom Schools, and the Work of Repair. So let's get her in here. I'm super excited. The book is a bonus. The book is a bonus because we can go deep today. Dr. Jenkins, how you doing?
I am great. I'm trying to create a space that's quiet on my side, but I'm so happy to be here with you today, Friday.
I tell you what, we gonna bring the ancestors in so that the next generation that you got going on behind you is all good. Because this is why, this is absolutely why we do the work that we do. And so I want to start with you. We got your bio. Part of your history I actually didn't know with the educational focus, but tell us a bit about your educational background and the process for you to even be put on to New York's Reparations Commission.
Okay, great. And thank you. I don't often talk about myself, which I don't feel like I should often. Just one of those people who get out there and do the work. But I was an adjunct professor for almost 20 years at three different prominent um, education, higher education schools here in New York. And the final one was John Jay.
Okay.
And I'll be
Justice.
actually,
So this aligns. John Jay, for those of you not from New York who don't know, that's like criminal justice school. I mean, John Jay helped found, the United States of America. So he was kind of there at the beginning. If you read them
and he has a little
Federalist
stuff with him.
Papers. Yeah, yeah, okay.
And I loved working there. I loved working at all of them. And I'll be returning to John Jay next spring. But in the interim, and it's speaking to the whole prophetic education piece, Friday, I've run an after school for over a decade, and I've watched the students, and this is not unique to New York. They really need support. And so when I left John Jay, I said, you know what? Let me put my toe into the public school system. And I had no clue at the time that many of the things that I had discovered while doing the after school program would find themselves to be true and needed. Students have individualized education plans. I personally don't feel like the system is serving them and their families. And this
As
becomes
a
an issue.
mom of a kid with an IEP, um, It was cool through the fifth grade. Once we got to middle school, and I have to, my son's, I'm probably telling too much of his business, but my son's IEP teacher was his kindergarten teacher. So she knew him.
Nice.
And she was his IEP teacher from, I think from fourth, and fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me to prepare me as we transitioned to junior high school. She said it's not going to be the same. And I feel like when you talk about that prison education to prison pipeline,
Fine.
it
Yeah,
kind of happens with the IEP kids,
it
and it
does.
kind of happens because they move from being kids, up to that age 10, and
Mm,
then everything else once you hit middle school is disciplinary. They're
yeah.
discipline problems.
Yeah.
So let me see what you discovered on your 10-year journey.
Well, yeah. So in our after school, we served K through 8. So that's the middle school years that you're talking about now, right? So before going to the public school system, I went to charter school. While it's really bad and challenging in the public school, I think it's that much worse in the charter school. And here's why: charter schools are driven by data. Students having IEPs threaten that data, meaning that their reputation isn't as strong with IEP students, though they have them. They're not receiving the services that they need because of the data driven nature of charter schools. So I dip over into the public school system. I'm teaching high schoolers. That's just closer to the college level, right? You thinking about, and then you know this because you have your own story. These kids, they need their parents to truly lean into the advocacy,
Hmm.
because once they leave, they can still have them in college, right? I've served that. So now I've served the spectrum of
And a lot of
students.
people don't know that. A lot of
They
people
don't
don't know
know.
that it carries over. And in my son's case, I was very fortunate. The Waldorf school, Waldorf is whole child education learning system. They teach the kids everything: coloring,
Mhm.
knitting, life skills. They
High
teach
school.
them some of everything: music, drumming, all the things.
Hmm.
Which we don't get in a lot of the other high schools. But students from the Waldorf school here in Los Angeles left, but these are people with money. They were tired of paying that tuition to the Waldorf school and formed their own charter school because a lot of their students did have the IEPs. And so they wanted to create an environment that really catered to them, and I just lucked upon it. I lucked upon it. I was going to a
Wow.
therapist for my son, and she mentioned the school, and they accepted him. When I looked into it right away, but that's not the standard model.
It's not.
Um,
It's
no, it's
wonderful
not,
to
and
hear.
the kids get lost with that transition, like you said, again from high school
Yeah.
into college.
College, into college. And I would say that they may fare better in college, right? Because they have all of these different programs that students who are not only underserved in life, but in terms of their academic preparation, right? But it's that middle school and high school where if you're not that parent who actually knows how to navigate the system and advocate for your student, your child, God bless the babies, right? And so that's where I am. And prophetic education, as you read, it converges academic, cultural, and also faith. And the faith is not, I'm a Christian, in terms of the traditional word, right? But it's everybody's. Even if they're atheists, that's a faith. I don't. They can call it not a faith. It's a faith because that is what your belief is. You believe in. You choose to believe in no deity. You choose to
Right.
believe in a nothingness. That is a faith. And so, if you are raising your child in that belief system, it's still important for his or her academic achievement and also their culture. So, I'm really excited about this book. I'm still adding to it, and certainly, if you don't mind, when we get off camera, you can definitely, or off time, offline, you can definitely tell me about that school system that broke off from the Waldorf, and I could probably add it somewhere in like the last chapter where I'm talking about current practices in pedagogy.
Well, yeah, for us, I think, in terms of Freedmen schools, Freedmen education, I think for us, like, that's something we should be doing
Yeah,
because you have the ability. If you have enough students, you can stand up a charter school in an existing public school. It's not like you
Absolutely.
have to go look for your own building and this, that, and the other. And I don't want to oversimplify it and say it's an easy thing to do.
Hmm.
However, everything is about rules and law. So when you get a team of parents together who understand the law, instead of having pods, where you're homeschooling, you can stand up. And the Waldorf school I like because the teacher stays with the child from kindergarten through the eighth grade.
Love it.
So the child is not being reintroduced to another teacher, another personality. That teacher stays with them basically for their educational life. So you have one teacher who might just have two educational lives within that Waldorf school system because that's going to take them to 40 years or 20 years or whatever the case it
Love
is,
it. Hmm.
before they retire. And so it was a nice system. It worked for us. We might have to have you back when you get the book in. But let's talk about your process for becoming a commissioner with the New York Commission. And for those of you who don't know, let's just do a quick recap. It was in 2023 that the Senate bill, and the Senate bill was authored, I think, by Senator Saunders, but it was his companion bill to Szilagyi. And I just want to show this photo because I sometimes feel like these photos are worth a thousand words. And so, even though it has the print, but this is from Governor Hochul's office when it was signed. And so, Senator Saunders is kind of here behind the words.
Hmm.
Szilagyi is standing here behind Governor Hochul. And here's a wider shot, and then you're in this shot.
Hmm.
But the signing of the bill to me, photo says a lot because and there's what is his name? Not Dr. Darity, Derek Hamilton.
Hamilton. Hmm.
He's in this photo too. These are at least the recognizable faces, and Senator Saunders here. And I always say it's the people close to power. So you're pretty close to power because you're standing next to Szilagyi.
Hmm.
But Senator Saunders, he a slippery character. That brother, for 2 years, U.S. Freedmen Project in New York, and that's for you guys. That's Divine, that's Sister Kim.
Hmm.
Um, is the brothers and sisters in New York who really for 2 years were trying to get American freedmen language like added to the bill that ultimately was signed by um, Governor Hochul, and that did not happen. And I share this story, and I want to share it here today. Um, Haiti, I guess, participated in the Civil War. Haiti sent troops. I imagine for the Union. I'm not sure which side. Honestly, I don't know that piece of history. But Szilagyi is one of the reasons why she was emphatic on reparations, including all black races in New York, was because of the contribution of Haiti during that Civil War. And I can understand her wanting something from the United States, for Haiti specifically. I cannot understand you hitching that onto the experience of American freedmen in the United States. I don't think that that's right. But talk to us about your experience, applying for this commission.
Yeah, so it wasn't an application process actually. I think it was quite political. It just so happens that I live in the district just over from the assembly speaker, and he and I have been engaging back and forth, not negatively, just having like real, true discussions about reparations. And obviously, it was some departures between us. It just is. There just are. Um, I'm very active in my community with both my New York State senator and assemblymen and councilmen, and that's really important because we can't get anything done if we're not at those tables, right? And they, we kept talking, and when it was time for him to make an appointment, he consulted his colleague in the assembly, who's my assemblyman, and my state senator, who is also his state senator, and they wholeheartedly said yes. They call me Pastor Dad because they've seen my work in this community from, you name every issue we've had Friday. I've been at the forefront in my community, and even down to 1 pp, right, when necessary, known down there, respected. And while everybody doesn't know my name, those who have been the recipients of the work I've done to advance our community, and when I say our community, I mean the Black community. Obviously, you know how New York is. It's very homogenous. Everybody's here. But everyone, no one has ever accused me of being anything but unapologetically Black. It may make some people uncomfortable, but I've always been who I am. And after he consulted with them, who called me? My senator called me. He was like, Pastor Deb, I got somebody on the phone for you. I did not beg for it. He and I had just been having these conversations over and over again. I did not ask him. Um, and when he talked to them, he told them to get me on the phone and let's do this. And I was pleased and I was honored and I still am. And I keep telling people, there are two of us on that commission who have at least hinted at our position. You may know the other one, but I am the other one. And I've always said that I've been a lineage based. My position is that of a lineage base. I will say it in so many different ways because I stand on that. And the other is Dr. Daniels. And I'm not really sure, honestly, where he really falls, but we know his body of work. So he's more of a Pan-Africanist, which might speak to what Assemblywoman Salages has intimated in believing that Haitians should be included. We have not come to any reparations recommendations as of this date, but that may speak to why she feels that way because he may also feel that way. I don't know. And we don't have these side conversations about it because we're trying to preserve the purity, if you will, of the recommendations once we have examined all the harms.
So I would respect Salages more if she held that position
Mm-hmm.
and in her position of power made herself available to truly hear the needs of constituents who have a different life experience. My issue with her is she hard nosed and didn't want to meet for 2 years. Um, I think there ultimately came a meeting, and I forget the other assemblywoman, but she was like in charge of like the Black Caucus or something. And
Treese Walker, was it her?
I don't remember. I know she was a brown skinned woman, and Senator Saunders. And Senator Saunders, my issue with him, a conversation was brokered with Senator Saunders and Dr. Shirley Weber, who, facilitated, it was her legislation that brought forward the California Commission. And I'm a New Yorker. I'm sitting here wearing my granny's New York Knicks shirt, trying to show a little, whatever, this is my granny shirt, but trying to show a little Knicks pride. And in the midst of the conversation, I'm from New York. Chris Logston we both from Brooklyn, New York. We are both New Yorkers, not upstate New York, but New York City.
New York, New York.
This man, while Dr. Weber is on the phone, did some East Coast, West Coast, banging. Oh, well, New York doesn't need California. What are you talking about? She's an institution of knowledge, first of all, because she's an educator. She is African American history, so she knows culture, where she's from, her life story. This woman is a walking historian. Okay,
yeah.
You are being given knowledge and things that were learned from our process, and this is what you offer up. And then within 24 hours, he dropped this bill that he co-authored with Salages. The bill that Hochul signed. So his even meeting with us, I felt was just a sham. And I don't know if you've been following the whole Ghana thing, and in the UN's positioning, this is the worst human travesty,
Yeah.
Transatlantic slave trade. I agree with that. But on the occasions that he was there, he's a finance guy, he's a banker. His positionality was, okay, you know, we have these government contracts, and so Africa consider black contractors, and then we as government, you know, in my position, will consider African contractors so that we can do business together. And then his sort of sweet ribbon on the top was, if we do this, we can have 10% of the profits go for schools and education in Africa. And I just keep thinking to myself, sir, does the Mississippi
Wow.
Delta not exist? I
Wow.
mean, does
Who is this speaking? This is Senator
this is Senator
Sanders
Saunders? Does Lowndes County still not have plumbing, you know, in black
in
communities?
Alabama.
Like, I'm just like, in terms of things like, and America's weird. Like, you can finance a house, you can't finance a house that's, I think, under 30 or 35,000. There are so many in rural America. There are so many houses that can be purchased. They might need to be
Fixed
built
up.
out, but they can be
Yep.
purchased at that 30,000 price point, and people will never be able to put a mortgage on it because it falls below lending guidelines. And so when he's there talking, that's the kind of stuff that I think about. And I'm curious, in your position as a commissioner, has there been much involvement? Like, have any of the assembly members, has Senator Saunders showed up to any of the actual sessions that you all have had?
He has. In fact, he was quite frequently present at many of our public hearings. Um, it was unfortunate that neither of them could make the final one in May at the Urban League Center on 125th Street. That was the final one. And that's probably for a lot of different reasons. Definitely calendaring, because we had a public hearing in her district the week before, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Um, yeah, he's been there. But I can tell you, in terms of that language, you mean like the march convening at the UN, where the Ghanaian president came with this, the language that you're speaking about? We've had no integrative discussions about it. Um, I found it to give me pause, and even some clips from the one that they just held in June, I believe. Serious pause, serious pause. As I looked at Black elders from the United States on the microphone, I'm sure you've seen them too, because they were floated around Twitter or X, almost pleading with the Ghanaian government to help them, to support them by giving them allowing them citizenship and access to land. That thing broke my heart
That's
because,
that's
like you're saying,
self-serving. That's very self-serving. Like,
it's very
you
self-serving.
build an escape route, and we like to say, like, we don't run. We stood and fought. That's what Frederick Douglass was all about. Brother
Right,
Delaney was like, look, I done had it with this oppression. I'm ready to get out. So I understand both sides, because the psychology of us as a
yeah,
people, that dichotomy has existed for long enough for me to, I can respect that if that's your choice, but that doesn't help us. That doesn't help the movement here. That doesn't help
right,
our positionality with the United States government, which is where our grievance lies. And
exactly.
if that kind of help is not being asked for, why are you not going to Ghana and asking for one of the things I've been trying to get off the ground? And I say stuff and people steal my stuff all the time, but it's not going to stop me from saying it because it needs to happen. Why are you not asking for a legal fund? Because we need to, based on what's happening with the Department of Justice right now and Hermit Talan, and I follow her. Everything she posts, I got a commentary. Almost everything, I have a commentary for it.
Mhm.
And I do that so that I understand how the government is moving. But we should have a fund that allows us to not only attack in federal court, but there are other things that are happening that we could be knocking the knees down in terms of what we need to do. And I just don't, I'm sorry, this is going to sound disrespectful, but the folks that are standing over there in the proximity of power, I don't think that they are articulate enough to understand the needs in really a meaningful way beyond self-serving.
Are you talking about the American blacks who
Yeah,
go?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, no, I agree. I think it's very much like, and I was sharing this, I was doing an interview earlier this week, and I was talking about from the faith perspective of, after Eric Garner, how I'd sit in these meetings with the NYPD with other clergy of every faith, interfaith, high level commissioner. level meetings when they were trying to tap into the faith community to try to quell the community, right? And I'm in there like, what are we going to do? What are you all going to do? How are you going to be better as the NYPD, right? So I'm sharing the other day that I would sit there and be like mouth to the floor, listening to these clergy, whatever the background, I'm not lying to you, whether they were rabbis, Islamic imams, Hindu leaders, you name it, we were all there. But there were only a few of us who were female clergy, right? And I would get on my phone and I'd be like, "Are you hearing this? Are you okay with this?" Because this was Friday, they were asking about placards, parking placards, so that we can park in front of wherever that says no parking without the fear of getting a ticket or our car towed. When we have cops choking out black men for the world to see, right?
Yeah, so the Eric Garner thing, and my brother was so moved by his death. Like he made a song. Um, it's not EMS. It's like something like medical, but it's letters. I'll pull it up when we take the commercial break. But he went out and he photographed for this video and this song he did with Myrna. Shout out Myrna. She's an Iranian sister who lives up in Canada. Beautiful voice, very
Mhm.
Estelle like. But um, we are old enough. I keep telling y'all I'm older than I look. We are old enough to remember when you could go to the corner store and get your parents a Lucy, and it as a child. And
Yeah.
so when you hear of someone dying for selling loose cigarettes, and yes, the law is now regulating, and they're saying that it's for sanitary reasons and blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
When you have people who can be 18 years old, they can go to the police academy, they can become police officers, and they are several generations younger than our generation that remembers when Lucy's were legal.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't want to hear about nobody dying because
We
they selling
don't.
cigarettes on the street.
No,
We just don't.
we don't.
Because there was a time where that was legal and no one should be dying and being brought to the ground for that. Confiscate the cigarettes and keep it moving. I
Absolutely.
don't need no parking space that's going to give me a false sense of security that presumes that you're the same officers that took him down would also respect my life enough to
Right.
not kill me in a spot that's a designated safe zone. Miss me with that. That's that anyway.
Absolutely. And the point is that you have all of these prominent New York City clergy from all five boroughs. And this is what their interest is. And also providing cover, preparing like little anecdoted speeches that they would produce in front of their congregants to say that the cops aren't bad. They're not bad. They're our friends. This is the same and equivalent to what you were saying about the Black delegation who stands with this international global reparations movement. Um,
And we should be there, but it should not obscure the needs of American freedmen in the
right,
United States of America, nor should
absolutely.
it obscure the needs of the Brazilians who also live under similar circumstances us here, where they are outnumbered and they are a minority in their population. It shouldn't obscure what the Brazilians have going on. But
Right.
we're going to take a quick pause because we're going to take a break. But I want to remind people why we do this show. This is called the Black Civics Collective for a reason. Dana, if I could have you pull up our little card so that I can remind the people, we want you all to be civically engaged. We don't want this just to be a conversation. We want this to be a point of motivation. We want you to get out and vote. Right now, we are in midterms, and it's a lot going on, particularly between now and 2028. But in this 2026 year coming up in November, we need you to know where people are. They can't be tap dancing like Talarico on reparations. They need to know exactly what it is that their positionality is and what they're going to do for us. We need folks joining political parties. There are new parties forming. I can't co-sign on them, but I appreciate the fact that they are forming. Go check them out. Help with somebody's campaign. Get involved with a civic group like the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants or Coalition for a Just and Equitable California. If you're in New York, get with the U.S. Freedmen Project. There are organizations around the country that are doing things with regards to reparations. You can also give your opinion. There's a lot going on with the EEOC right now, and they want to remove racial categories. They don't even want to be taking the data information anymore. Why? Because the reparationist has made them disaggregate the data. But we need you all active in these public calls to action, in the EEOC public call to action. You need to respond by August 7th. In the meantime, in between time, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to pick it back up with Dr. Deborah Jenkins, the Vice Chair of New York's Reparations Commission.
Welcome. We are the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants. Our mission is to advance the national movement for reparations. The United States Office of Management and Budget set 5 minimum standards for collecting racial data. The black race is defined as a person having origin in any of the black racial categories of Africa. NAASD has recommended that the OMB disaggregate data to accomplish 3 goals: decouple race from ethnicity, create an ethnic term that exclusively identifies descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, and create an ethnic term that preserves the American freedmen political status. The ethnogenesis of the African American identity is a result of ethnocide. The identity is from a people with shared history. Race identity plus ethnic identity equals peoplehood. Together, we can fix this dilemma with the OMB. We can build a coalition, grow the movement, and create a unified demand. What can you do to get involved? You can join NAASD today at www.naasd.org. You can email the OMB using our toolkit, or you can donate to NAASD so that we can continue this work. Thank you for your time, and stay connected with us on social media at NAASDORG. We are on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can also sign up for our newsletter at www.naasd.org.
All right. And because we are very much in the middle of midterms, when it comes to voting, there are some things that you can remember. Are we going to pull up the voting card? Do we have the voting card? We got some tips for people. We need you to make sure you know your physical address. We know that Trump is trying to beat back the mail-in card, so make sure you have a physical address. Go to your local state Board of Elections website so you can find out what congressional district, assembly district that you are in. You need to know who is the incumbent, so you might want to upseat them. Long Beach, I know we want to upseat the person down there for Carolyn Essex. That's my 2 cents, personal views, not NAASD's views. But register, ask for a sample ballot. We are at a time in our window where you can still make sure you are registered to vote, and research the records of those people that hold offices, particularly your judges. This is your time. Vote early when you can. We'll be continuing this message as we get closer to the November elections. And so we are back with Dr. Deborah, and I just want to update folks real quick, and I'm going to share my screen. And I went with the local paper. This is the devil we've been talking about, Senator Saunders, James Saunders, and he is American freedmen, people. So, you know, people always want to say black folks are not a monolith. American freedmen are also not a monolith. How we think is very different. We are individuals with our individual life experiences, and so try to have grace with people. But anyway, try to also make sure that they are comprehensive and all holistic in the work that they do. This commission is being delayed for 2 years. And Szilagyi, who's the chair of the Black, Puerto Rican, and Hispanic Asian Legislative Caucus, um, she's the person, again, who drafted this bill. And the commission is being delayed. And I think that took a lot of people by surprise. One of the things that people fail to remember is that outside of Charleston, South Carolina, New York was the second largest port in the United States during the transatlantic slave trade. It definitely was part of the trade route. Going, folks would come from West Africa to New York and then actually go down south, right? They would stop in Charleston and they would stop in the Caribbean. And so we have to remember that part of the industry itself, New York is a part of. According to Szilagyi, the major concern was doing the right thing. They wanted to turn in a quality project, meaning the recommendations, making sure that we get every community in New York in that can possibly come and visit. They're getting word that different people saying that they love the commission. They're also getting word that there are people who, like us, are not too thrilled with the commission because they have not been overly fair in the process in order to facilitate their vision. And I think that for any leader, I don't care if you're black, white, if you're immigrant, whatever your ethnic background is, it's imperative that you actually represent all of your constituents. And I think that when we give protests, we're giving protests because all the voices are not heard. And so how did this 2-year extension come out? Because this thing started in 2013, right, being signed into law. We're
20.
already at 2026, so we're 3 years into the process, and now we're talking about taking this 3-year process into a 5-year process. And so how did that happen?
So when we were sworn in, I mean, literally the day that we were sworn in, it was contentious. If you might recall, there was this whole thing about who should be the vice chair and all of that, which to me spoke clearly to there having been some pre meetings prior to our swearing in to select who they wanted to be in leadership. After that contentious vote, um, one of the commissioners said that I feel like we're being set up. And it continued to be a refrain. And that's specifically because we were not given staff. We were initially hopeful to be housed under SUNY. It's an education arm, right? But we ended up being housed under the Office of General Services, or OGS. And that's where we are now. So, in addition to not being housed in an education arm, not being given staff, the procurement process is a mind blower. It takes so long to bring on staff, and that's exactly what happened. The first staff member we had was an operations manager who we knew fully would be temporary. She was a recommendation from someone in OGS because she'd worked at OGS, I guess, I don't know, as a consultant. She was great, but we needed a team of people, and we knew she'd be leaving soon. And it took us forever to get an executive director. That didn't end well. We had to transition from that executive director, slow down so much progress. At that time, we had one major contractor, and that's the public studies policy people. Uh, and they're
Did,
good,
did you guys put out an RFP for these positions?
all of them, for all
Okay.
of them. And I can talk a little bit about that too. I just want to give a plug to our people in a minute, or in a piece of encouragement. So we have one primary contractor, really the central contractor still today. They are our research historians and our policy analysts. And I think I referred your organization to our policy analyst. I'm not sure. You would have probably told me. But if you haven't heard from them, they're now in transition. The policy analyst I've been working closely with, because I'm that liaison, she's leaving. She's excellent. You're gonna love what you see coming out of her work. The problem is there was too much confusion. There was no direction for the research historian and the policy analyst. And that's all we had at the time, alongside the operations manager and the executive director. The executive director was not able to provide the leadership that the policy analyst and the research historian needed. And so that's when we thought up, let's come up with these commission liaisons to our contractors. Commissioner Tarrant Reed is the liaison with the research historian. As I just said, I'm the one for the policy analyst. Trying to onboard these contractors, these vendors, has been a nightmare. The final contract was issued in February, no, March of this month, of this year. That was our public education coordinator. And then finally, we got a replacement executive director in April. Um, Trying to ensure that the work that had been started with the research historian and the policy analyst continued to go forward, we found that this we were not going to be able to meet the demands of the timeline for December of 2025 to give a report, 2026, to give the report to the governor and the legislators by January 2027. I personally was more in favor of a 6 month extension, believing that we'd be able to do it. We could get this together. We're no longer having public hearings. We can sort of focus on making sure that the report would come out in the way that makes sense with the strongest recommendations. But it ended up being a 2 year um, extension. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not sure of the nucleus of it, other than the fact that we needed more time. I thought we could have done it by next June. Others thought differently, and that's why we have the 2 year extension.
All right. So while you were talking, I was like, what does the Office of General Services do in New York? And we're going to show who their leadership team is. Because, it sounds to me that you all had a lack of leadership from this department. And commissioner to commissioner, for those of you that don't know, it is not uncommon in these state commissions for you to be placed under an existing department of government. At the state level, it was California's Department of Justice. For the city of Los Angeles, it was the Civil and Human Rights Division. So for New York, it is this Office of General Services. And, this commissioner here, Jeanette Moy, she, in theory, should have been the one bringing all of these team members, the executive deputy commissioner, Sharon Buck, Emily Rubenstein, Jermaine Difo, Gary Yapple, should have been bringing essentially this team, but it seems like another team of unpaid people because they're commissioners. They're not staffers. Like, this is not a staff. This feels like it's a commission. So you were essentially, it sounds like, housed in a department that did not have actual staff of its own. Is that a correct assessment?
So with New York State, they have commissioners. As you know, Commissioner Tim Hogs, he is the commissioner of civil service in the state, for the state of New York. He is a paid commissioner. What it
So
is
these are paid people.
these are paid people. This is a paid
Okay.
staff. They sit under the executive. They're under the executive, which is the governor. So
Governor
they
Hochul.
Governor
Okay.
Hochul. So Commissioner Moy is a paid staff member in her chamber.
And did Commissioner Moy, help to facilitate beyond just her office issuing the RFPs? Were there additional staff members and I'm asking this question because in California, let's keep her face up here because, I'm about people being accountable. Uh, in Los Angeles, not California, in Los Angeles, we had access to staff, and additional city staff was hired specifically to help. We had a project manager who came on. It was cheaper to bring her on as city staff
Sure.
than it was to hire her as an outside consultant.
Hmm.
So they brought her on. She's still a member of the city staff. but we had the full use of that department, including legal. You know, anytime you got a commission, there's some sort of legal, and all of these people were already employees. And so to hear that you had to struggle for a director, you know, you didn't have anyone to pull it together, you wanted 6 more months. Where was Jeanette Moy in the middle of this? How responsive was she to the needs of your commission?
Yeah. So we don't have any direct communication with Commissioner Moy. I'm literally just learning of her. We have a team assigned to work with us. Seriously, we have a team assigned to work with us.
And I'm
Mhm.
not doing this for like the deficiency of the commission. Like sometimes, and what I learned is like this work is very political. And
Oh, yeah.
so if she is the department that you are under, everything that goes on with you, whether she likes it or not, falls on her. Why? Because it's your department and this is where
Oh,
we're
yeah.
placed.
Oh, yeah.
And
So,
so for you to not like know who she was or whatever
um,
until today, to me that's by design, and that's intentional setup for like failure at the
well,
end of
that
the
is what
day.
the commissioner, when we were sworn in, continuously said. It was a refrain that was repeated. And I guess, I don't disagree with her because, or that commissioner, because at this juncture, for us to have such a long extension, which at this point I'm fine with, right? Because it is what it is. It was my initial desire that it be 6 months. It was not everybody's desire. I still believe that at this point where we are now, because the conditions are still the same, we're fully staffed up. But after having grandfathered out the public hearings, we have more time to focus on the report itself. I think that we may not need all of that time. Time
How
will
would you
tell.
know?
I don't think we need all of that time. PSA, I cannot stop giving them their kudos. And I really have to shout out one of the principals because I meet with that person when we have that policy analyst meeting. And this is how things should work. And I'll get back to your OGS question in a second. It's really important that I would say Commissioner Tarrant Reed and myself continue to do this work so that the report that is presented, the recommendation, the harms that are codified, we all know what they are, but they have to be linked to the policies that have gone before us and the history, which is the part that Commissioner Tarrant Reed is doing. It's critically important that they know what they're doing and that they're able to flow in such a way that distractions will not become a part of the work that they're uncovering. And that is why I inserted myself so clearly in the policy piece. First of all, I'm a political scientist, I know policy, right? And I also needed to know that this person who is the analyst understands from the broader perspective of what descendants of people enslaved in New York, in the United States, have endured and not make it a global project. And I'm very pleased with the kind of work that's been happening so far. As far as OGS, we have a team assigned to us by, I guess, by the commissioner. However, their inner workings are. We have a team, and we meet with them regularly on Fridays and when we need in between. The contracting team is superb, but there's another layer. Whatever our RFPs are, the lowest bidder, is always going to win, but it has to then go to the state controller's office. That is where there can be a bottleneck. If the contractor doesn't have their insurance, if the contractor's proposal by mistake, and that has not happened, um, doesn't meet all of the qualifications of being the lowest bidder, that's where we've seen the process be extended and take longer. But no, the contracting people, in fact, they will tell us months out which contracts are ending and ask us, do we want to extend them? The problem was just getting everybody on board. Just getting everybody on board. We got our economics team on board probably January, February, somewhere around there. And that's been great. They're on board because we need that whole calculation. They really like Dr. Darity's work. And then when we did the one in Staten Island with those two experts, they got a lot of information, but then they are able to put it together. Dr. Hamilton liaises with them. And so far, the work has been really good. They are the only ones who have not made a public presentation in one of our meetings, and hopefully in September we can have them do that. Let me go back to the contracting
Hold
process
on
for
one second, because
sure.
we are down to like the last 8 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And I wanna make sure I put this on the recording for posterity. One, commissioner to commissioner, be
Mhm.
comfortable with having different beneficiary classes in terms of language used. Second thing, go look at what Hermit Dillon wrote to Asheville. That letter is public. It's
Oh, I
public
saw that.
information.
Hmm.
You want to read it because the pushback that's going to come from the DOJ, and it will come, that is the pushback that you want to address. And in Evanston, you want to read the joint claim filed by the DOJ, because what they said in Evanston was that the housing policy, the housing voucher for $25,000 was too not narrow enough. And I think that that's subjective, and I think it's a bunch of nonsense, because $25,000 in a current United States is nothing. Like, honestly, you go to the right restaurant, you can spend that in one night. Like, you can spend that in 2 nights in Vegas just on the room rental itself. So it's not a lot of money, and so those are the advice that I want to give you as a commissioner, like commissioner to commissioner. I found that in my process, as a commissioner, once I read through all the reports that we received from our contractors, it was very easy to identify the different groups that were harmed. And I also, Senator Saunders did not want people who were not enslaved in New York to benefit, but I had my great grandmother who was, what do you call that? The Great Migration. So I
Hmm.
had two generations, my great grandmother and my grandmother. My great grandmother and her siblings, and then my grandmother came separately. So two generations of that great migration fleeing racial terror in the South. There's no
Right.
way you get to just omit them. These people went and
Right.
had factory jobs. They were paid certainly less than white men. They did not receive the same zoning. They couldn't move into Levitt towns, even if they could move
Yep.
into public housing. Like the white folks, they weren't moved out of public housing, onto Long Island, into those Levitt all white communities. And so there are harms that affected not just the people who may have been enslaved in the state of New York, but New York had its dealings, and New York also had Wall Street. So I wanted to make sure I got that in.
Yep.
And then you can close us out with what you need from the public, how we can further assist you during this 2 years, even though it feels like you're silent, so that
Yeah.
you have connectivity with community.
Thank you so much. First, you are echoing what was it? Chair Camilla V. Moore said to us when she came to Binghamton. Thank you. And this is definitely going to be considered. And what Dr. Darity and Kirsten Mullins also said. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we're all on the same page, and certainly you can feel confident, you and your audience, that I will push that in terms of the policy piece. Secondly, we are not even at the point of who should and who should not, but I personally take the recommendation of Kirsten Mullen and you when she said, make sure that it is descendants of those who were enslaved in the United States. I'm not of the opinion that you have to currently be living in New York State to be a part of it, but we're so far from there. What can the public do to support the continued efforts of this commission in this next 2 years? We will have public facing um, events. We have to. We can't just silo ourselves off and leave out the public. Why? It is in our name, community commission. It is a community commission. If the community is not involved, then it fails to be the commission, right? Let me say this really quickly about the contracting process. When this is over, I pledge to help our people. You have no idea how many people we could not contract with who have shared experiences with us. I need to help us. And I can help right now for free, but after it's over, I will be doing it to just get us on board, because we cannot allow these type of commissions that are specifically set up for us to exclude us from it because we don't know how to navigate the system and be those who are chosen as the contractors. That's really important. You need to know that people on this commission are working for the commission who have a shared value with us. And that's sadly not been the overwhelming experience on this commission.
Well, as we close out, you all have heard it here from Dr. Deborah Jenkins. We are going to have Dr. Deborah back when she releases that book. She's writing her book. I'm also authoring my book, Spiritual Manifestation of Reparations. So
Love it.
we here. We
Yes.
here. I see you. I love the work that you're doing.
Thank
I
you.
follow you on social media. If you want to share out your social media, how can people stay in touch with you?
I'm on X as Divine Expression, DVINEEXPRESSION. I
So,
don't interact over there too much anymore, but I am posting.
So follow Dr. Deborah Jenkins. I follow her. She and I stay in touch with each other. If I can continue being of help to you, and I want you to stay on so we can debrief after the show. But
Sure.
if I can be of further help to you, I was very happy to open this show up. And if you need it again, let me know and we will do it again. But for the replay people, this actually will air on Sunday, July 26th. But hit the replay if you miss us live tomorrow, and make sure you follow naasd.org. Please make donations. We are a small little nonprofit out here fighting this federal government, and we need you all to support the work that we do. So make sure that you donate to naasd.org. Click the little donate button. And that way, it doesn't matter if you give us $1, $10, $10,000. We accept it all for the work that we do. We do have a little tour happening this fall. We still haven't quite put out the details because we're working things out. But this fall, we are trying to take this message on the road. I want to thank our guest today, Dr. Deborah. Let's clap it up for her. Woo-woo. Please stay in touch with that New York Reparations Commission. And I just want to make sure I give out there, let's share it before we disconnect. You can go to ny.gov and just Google New York Reparations Commission, but you can find out more about it on their website. And I want you guys to stay in touch, particularly over this 2-year period. Sometimes writing those recommendations can be daunting and overwhelming. I've been in that position as a commissioner, and so let's just support the work coming out of New York. Until next time, this has been another episode of Black Civics Collective. I'm your host, Friday Jones. Until next time, thank you.